if somebody was to pivot into this and roll this out for the first time, what kind of recommendations would you have in making that tactical transition to merging these roles?
I think the most important thing is picking the right initial people and setting up a culture of like high ownership, picking the right entrepreneurial types to kind of like help set the operating principles for that group so that it can operate in like a very both collaborative but also very problem solving heavy way, to make things happen. Because like, and also it's always better to do it early on versus like later deciding that this is something you want. Because when there's already like organizational structure in place, and the engineers then become like, it's very hard for them to touch the crux of like operations unless there's like a burning fire. And so the earlier you can do that, the better. And just picking the right people to start off with it and giving them a lot of autonomy to shape how some like a more fused org looks like will be extremely helpful.
Can you talk about the composition of the ops team from early on to where it is now? Because for Rapid, I'm sure it's been grew a lot. So and more matured as well. Um, does that composition change? Is all 100% engineering, or now it's a little bit different? So can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so the current ops team, the way it works is like once someone has solved or figure out some kind of like solution to the 0-1 problem, you would definitely build a more traditional ops team around scalable processes. So today, ops is still heavily just like traditional ops, and that has happened as we evolve over time, over different verticals has become more mature. For example, our initial product market fit was all self-driving. It's like 3D labeling, and now there's a large org in ops built around that. I think for Rapid, it's a little bit different because the principle for it, since it's like very like for every single ML engineer out there should be able to have a Scale AI account, should be able to go on to Rapid and get quality data. You actually can't afford to have operations be involved just from a pure OpEx standpoint. And so that's why we were forced to build with a lot of automation. And there's like very little operations on Rapid other than for maintenance. So, i.e., we always proactively signal when we have problems in certain like areas and then have people look into it versus traditionally it was more like ops is running the show. So it's like a different modality in terms of how we view ops in a lot of ways. And I would say like initially it was kind of, we stumbled upon this like ops eng fusion that was like TPM's ops eng. That kind of like relinquished a little bit over time because like engineers obviously they're like, I don't know if I want to do ops. And then you have like a more traditional ops or kind of emerging. And then we added in Rapid, which kind of like works in parallel. And there's like, you know, like you can think of it like as like an intermittent like querying calls for ops when necessary to kind of look into certain problems. So I would say we it's not like that we just figured out how to do this from early on. I think we're very lucky that we kind of stumbled upon like using engineering to do ops was very special, and it actually helped us scale the company in a lot of ways.
So the ops team is now more on the maintenance side versus have exposure to user experience.
Yeah, so the nice thing for Rapid is that so the traditional, more scale, classic type of engagement is always been more white glove, and so we didn't like we like because of white glove nature of it, you sometimes have a longer gap between customer feedback. The nice thing about Rapid is now we get that user feedback directly from customers using the portal themselves. You can go on Full Story or any kind of like video site that captures kind of like the user journey to get that feedback. So that's been really nice. And in a lot of ways, the customer is acting similar to what ops would have done internally for them. But obviously, we've abstracted a lot of that away as like automation. And so we do get that feedback loop. And in a lot of ways, it's better forcing function. Because if you, effectively what you're doing is traditionally this product was internal, right? Ops use it and then we just deliver like some blanket amount of data. Now we made it external through Rapid. That gives you a much better forcing function because if the customers complain, you're definitely going to address it versus like an internal team. So in some ways, that's also a different like decision we made that became like a better forcing function to build out a better user experience for, you know, like running these type of projects.
Yeah, that alone is a interesting insight. It's a potentially less leverage, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. Yes. Yeah, like the kind of decisions you make on who is the customer, like, because if you look at internal tooling, traditionally just internal tooling isn't great. That's why companies like Retool have popped up, right? Because like the amount of eng resources, you're never going to prioritize certain things. You're always going to prioritize the customer, because like, you know, everyone's like, I mean, the firm's responsibility is to make revenue and make profits, right? And so that becomes like a much better alignment in terms of incentives once you like make that kind of tooling external facing and you get customer feedback. Now you can justify why you're investing time into making it a lot better.
That's great. It makes I start jumping up and screaming. It's like, if you want to improve your internal tooling, one way to improve that is make it customer facing. I think that's great. We we did a big overhaul to the dashboard for Gradual's platform, and like the V1 version of it was definitely a little bit more rudimentary, and so you definitely had to be an insider to understand how it all worked. And then like now it's much more customer and partner facing, and so like it got a big refresh, and that was a big, so definitely experienced that firsthand.